Good morning. Welcome to Monday Morning with Tanny. If you are here, can you please drop me a note so that I know you can hear me? I'm working with a microphone, so I just want to make sure that it's working. Or just hit some likes. And also, please share if you know anyone that has had a loss and you would like to extend some support for them. My name is Tanny Reed Walker. I am a counselor with FCSS in the Barons Rico Warner area. I tend to work primarily out of Tabor. However, with the COVID-19 situation, I'm able to support our whole entire area. The nice thing about doing the Facebook Lives is I can also reach mourners in all areas of the world as long as they have Facebook. We also post these on YouTube, so if you're interested in that, please let me know. So, I don't see any notes about whether anybody can hear me or not. I'm just going to hope that it works out. I also can't see myself. Oh, there we go. Now I can see. That's a little bit better. It's kind of unnerving looking at a blank screen. Today we're going to talk about the last two needs for mourning: reconciliation. The prior needs: acknowledging the reality of death, embracing the pain of the loss, remembering the person who died, and developing a new self-identity, or in the 2 weeks prior to this one. So please go check those out if you haven't yet. You're just catching us right now. These are all coming from Dr. Alan Wolfelt. He has a center for loss in Colorado, and he is fantastic. He has a ton of books. He also has trainings. They're so good. If you ever want to chat about him more or check him out, you can totally do that with me or look it up on his website. Anyway, today's are number 5 and 6. So they are search for meaning and receiving and accepting ongoing support from others. When a person passes away, there's a big hole in your life. And everything changes. How you think about everything changes. And one of the things mourners tend to do is question the meaning and purpose of their life, or life in general. Like kind of like, what's the point if it's all just gonna end? What am I doing with my life? What am I going to leave behind? I've been to funerals where they do the slideshows of the pictures, and they're very formal, and all of the pictures are, you know, like the family around, and they're all posing for the camera. And I understand in the past taking pictures and developing them and all of that sort of stuff was very expensive. But even some of people don't have any recent pictures that are done unless they're those formal pictures. And for me, I realized that is not what I want for any of my family members. And I like to live in the moment, but I also want to make sure I catch those moments on camera. We have these cameras in our pockets, and these times are so important, and you don't know. For me, I don't know if I'm going to see that person again. And I want to make sure that I have lots of beautiful images for us to look back on if they pass away. So, in part of that, I guess that's a search for meaning for me. It's like the meaning of our life are those connections and those engagements and just showing a beautiful life lived. So that's a little bit of a personal thing that I just kind of slipped in there. So you look at reasons for going on, why, and you have to look at the why before you look at the how. So instead, the time of mourning, you are looking at at a pause in your life. You go from just, busily and unthinkingly going about your day and your life, and this is happening and this is happening, and I get up and I make my coffee and I eat my breakfast, and you just kind of like go through. But there's a time after a loss where things kind of pause and you start to look at all of the things that you're doing, and you're wondering, why are you doing them? What is the meaning of this? And you get to stop and kind of analyze that. And I say get to, but it's really more have to. So I've changed it to get to so that I can put a little bit more of a sense of power over what's happening. Or maybe a power with is probably a better way of saying it. So it's like, okay, this is happening. I'm going to take some time. And it's not a solid linear thing, again, just like all of the other ones. It's just taking time to reflect and being aware that it's kind of stopped. And this time is also designed to like reconstruct a shattered world. A lot of counselors really enjoy the movie Inside Out, and in the movie, if you haven't seen it, it's a little girl, Riley, and she didn't have a person die, but her whole world changed when her family moved. And she was also like growing and hitting puberty, and her emotions are really huge. It's a beautiful movie to watch that talks about emotions. But in part of it, her, like, the little emotion characters are in her brain, and all of her brain landscape is crumbling and falling apart, and it's just massive destruction and panic and sadness, and all of the things are going on. And the emotions actually make it back to the headquarters. And it kind of feels like that. You feel like everything's out of control, nothing is what it looked like. You're discovering things that don't work for you anymore and things that are going to work for you. And at the very end of the movie, the characters that are in her brain are looking at the new landscape, and it's bigger and more developed and more mature, and it's just a really great way of talking about what happens for us. And so when you're looking for your meaning, everything's gonna feel like it's fallen apart, and this time kind of pauses. I often hear, I just want to move forward, I just want to go ahead. And searching for meaning is part of that. And it happens a lot of the time during that pause. So stopping that, like inhibiting that need, you can also often feel like disorganized, have anxiety, your emotions are explosive. You can express regret, like, oh my gosh, I've wasted all of this time. And it's not a waste. We're growing. It's like when you're running and you're out jogging or something, and you're like, oh my gosh, I wasted all that time as a baby learning how to walk. It took 60,000 attempts as a baby to learn how to walk. What a waste of time. No, it all matters. It's all part of it. Sadness, depression, and difficulties with trust and intimacy. Because if you have not worked on the search for the meaning of the loss and the meaning of your own life, then it's scary to get into a relationship with somebody else. Because grief is not an enemy to be vanquished. It's a necessity to be experienced as a result of having established meaningful bonds in life. And if you don't have trust and intimacy and haven't created those meaningful bonds, you are not going to experience grief, and you're not going to have to mourn. But I also understand that it's a very lonely and unfulfilled life, and it can create a lot of extreme unhappiness and apathy. So searching for meaning can help tie up loose ends. You're trying to figure out how to kind of wrap up that part of that person's life and then incorporate your new relationship with them into your new life. Like, I realized after one of my uncles died that I needed to access my own spirituality a lot more and decide, like, what do I believe? What do I think is happening? And that's a really, really big thing for people to go through, because you're going to explore what you were raised to believe, and you might break down some of those social ideas and all of those constructs that were created for you as you were growing up. Your worldviews are going to be challenged, and you're going to feel like you're wrestling with what you were taught to believe, what you're experiencing now, and then creating that new meaning and that new understanding for yourself. Again, it works with all of the other needs, and it's not linear, and you are going to just continue working that. And ways to explore your search for meaning is, again, you're going to explore your worldviews. You might talk to some people. You might look online. If you get a little idea in your mind, check it out on Google. Like, explore all the possibilities. There's not any harm in exploring possibilities. Just because you read something doesn't mean you have to believe it. It has to resonate within you. And just be curious. And one of the biggest things is to be compassionate. Be compassionate to yourself and your curiosity. If you need to explore something that's a little darker, that's okay. You're just exploring the search for meaning. And that's really powerful. So we're moving in this point from looking at your daily living to looking at why you're having that daily living, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's the thoughts on that. I'd be curious to know, anybody, if you're watching or even after, if you would comment on your search for meaning. Like, what changed for you? What have you discovered about yourself? What was surprising? What is your meaning? And if you're struggling with that, maybe we can look at some ways to help. So the final one is to receive and accept ongoing support. And this is something that needs to happen long after the death. People in our society want to move on. They don't want to burden people with talking about the death. And it's like, oh my gosh, all this person ever does is talk about the death. And we need to keep talking about it. I think that normalizing it is really powerful. It's a part of our life. And when you're talking about it, you can talk about the search of meaning. You can talk about your experience with reality. You can talk about the pain. You can spend time remembering the person who died and working on your self-identity. This doesn't happen overnight. This stuff takes a really long time. Your relationship with that person took a long time, and it was really, really full and had so many dynamics to it, and memories and emotions and all of these amazing things. Some were great amazing and some were not so good amazing, but you had all of that. So taking time to do these things and having and receiving and accepting ongoing support is very important. And we've talked about before how we dose with mourning. You can't just constantly be expressing those grief emotions. we have lives to live and people to support and all of these different roles. So our brains and our hearts are pretty careful at giving us moments. And at first the moments are lots. And then later on, as time goes on, they become fewer. But they're always important. And we really need to look at special times in our life, like anniversaries of the death, of birthdays, significant moments, significant times. Maybe you went on a vacation the same time every year, and your body is going to remember this. Our bodies are really intelligent, and you might feel a little bit more down, and you're like, what's going on? And so having that ongoing support for years can help, because somebody else is seeing the patterns and they're like, hey, you know what? This was a really significant day in your year with that person that's not there anymore. And it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel like you can't do the same things that other people might be doing on this day. And so an example is my husband's favorite holiday was always Canada Day. Loves Canada Day. Just like puts up the flag and always has a big family meal, and often we'd be camping and he would just be like, rah rah Canada. It was awesome. And then his dad died on Canada Day a few years ago. And so now he calls it Canada Day. And it's changed. It's a little bit more somber, introspective, but it's celebrated. It's just celebrated differently. And we don't feel bad about changing that. It's just part of the process of his life and my life with him as his support. Earlier in this episode, I talked about grief not being an enemy to be vanquished. It's a necessity to be experienced as a result of having established meaningful bonds in life. I talk about it a lot. If you don't love, you're not going to grieve. And most people have loved and therefore are going to grieve. So please find someone that you can talk to for years about this. It's really, really powerful. Grief can be really lonely, isolating, but having even just one person can be so helpful, even if you only touch base with them a few times a year, just to help you know that you're not totally alone. It can especially be lonely if it's a stigmatized loss, so suicide, murder, overdose, those things can really help make a person feel more lonely, especially depending on what your religious beliefs are, what your family's cultural beliefs are. If your family is a shove it away kind of family, it might be a little bit more difficult to find somebody who's supportive. But there will be somebody. There's going to be somebody. You can find somebody. This leads to accepting support. We have such, at least in my area of the world, such a do it yourself, pull up your bootstraps, get on with it, just deal with it kind of mentality, that it can be very harmful, and it can really impede the ability to accept support from other people. Because at first people will be like, I can help, I'm here to help, I want to help. And we've talked before about the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So 1/3 of people are going to be harmful, 1/3 of people are just going to be neutral, like it doesn't, like they're just there, and 1/3 will be actually helpful people. I know you're in a hard place, and I know things have stopped, and it's really hard that you have to do all these changes that you did not ask for. But that 1/3 of people, try to remember them. Try to pick the ones that are working for you and hold on to them, because they're really important. Accepting support is one of the best things you can do. We need support. Human beings are pack animals. Look at the giant cities we live in. In the olden days, we used to travel in packs. It's very important to create your own team. If you're feeling like you're really tired on a certain day of the year or around a certain time of the year, listen to your body and think about, why is this happening? What's happened over the years? I actually super love Facebook because my memories pop up every day, and then I'm like, oh wow, this happened 6 years ago. Interesting, because this has been my response when I woke up this morning. It's kind of interesting to see those patterns that happen for each of us depending on what's going on. I know August is a really impactful month for me personally, the whole entire month. I actually work now to schedule lots of vacation time and plan for my energy level that tends to occur during that time. It's just a really impactful month for me. And the more I take care of it and the more I acknowledge it for me, it's actually less impactful. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know for sure kind of like which came first, but I'm going to assume it's me taking care of myself after realizing August was just a really hard month for me. So, one other thing that I'd like to talk about is our need. Some of us feel after a person has passed away that we need to fill some of the roles that they fulfilled. So, if the person that passed away, their role was to hold all the family gatherings, like keep the whole family together. That person is the one that initiated the family gatherings, planned it all, made it super fun, kept everyone connected, and all of a sudden they're gone. Somebody else may feel the need to move into that role. And they may not have asked for it, but they just feel that responsibility. Again, that is why it's good to have an ongoing support system, because you're about to learn a new role. And if you decide to take that on and that's part of your search for meaning, awesome. Get support. You're learning new things. You didn't ask to learn these new things. Things were comfortable the way they were before. We just went about our lives doing the things. Now you've got a new role. I hear about that a lot, is the new roles, and it's such a burden when you're experiencing so much difficulty and so much pain. So those are the 6 needs for mourning. Acknowledging the reality of the death, embracing the pain of the loss, remembering the person who died, developing a new self-identity, search for meaning, receive and accept ongoing support from others. Again, these are not linear. They are all tied up together and woven together in a ball. And if you need support, please reach out for it. FCSS has counselors. There's lots of services online. There's informal groups. Find something that is supportive for you. And if you leave a group or anything and you don't feel a little bit better, at least, it makes you feel worse, don't ever go back to that group. That is not a good group for you. You want to find ongoing support and understanding. You want to be able to express those grief emotions that are inside you. That's what mourning is. Mourning is moving them out. And it is a process, and it is work, and it is one of the most difficult things about being a human. But the bigger it is, the more important it is. that would be it today, I guess, for Monday morning. Thank you so much for listening. Please share, please comment, please drop me a line. You can either do it on Messenger or you can do it through my email. I would really like some ideas on what you would like to hear about from Monday morning, what kind of questions you have. Help guide me. I haven't had very many questions sent, so I would really appreciate some. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely week. I'll see you next Monday.